Linus Tech Tips has really bad advice for first-time PC gamers trying to put together a low-budget gaming PC. It's the wrong processor, the wrong RAM, the wrong storage, the wrong power supply unit, and the wrong case. The only thing correct is the motherboard choice. He's not the only one, and this is a common problem from bigger tech channels, and in this video I will break down why this is bad advice based on 3 main problems, and I will offer you alternatives if you're looking for a low-budget gaming PC, especially as a first-time gamer. Let's check it out. Hey name tags and welcome. If you're just meeting now, my name is Ash from Tech, and on this channel I want to help you develop a better relationship with technology. So find the subscribe button, click on it and click the bell icon to go from newbie to techie, and use my Amazon affiliate links in the description below to help out the channel. When it comes to cheap budget gaming PC builds, it looks like bigger tech channels do not understand the term cheap budget the same way we do, or it looks like they do not remember what it's like to be a first-time builder. But hey, I could be completely wrong here. So I also decided to ask you guys. Of course, you didn't know I was referring to those bigger channels directly, but only 12% of you went with that type of advice they are dishing out so far. I only asked yesterday, and one worse option to that was to go for a completely used older generation platform for a budget PC. So who are they making those videos for? If I'm wrong, I stand corrected. That's why the comment section exists. Go to town below. Still, when it comes to latest and high-end tech, if you're into that sort of thing, hats off to them. Go subscribe to their channels. Link will be above and below. And if any of you are watching this, Linus, Kyle, and Paul, you're welcome for the shout out. Now do the same for me.
Our new My First Gaming Rig price tier was challenging to hit, but this year the stars aligned and we actually pulled off a passable esports gaming rig for about $300 with all brand new components.
The first problem is the budget allocation, $300 to $350. For that price, you should not be looking at brand new components from the latest architecture. For that budget, you need a mixed bag of new and older generation, because this is such a bad investment and terrible price to performance ratio.
Guys, it's the end of 2019. We're looking forward into 2020, and I am getting back to my roots with a super budget build. This system will cost you only about $350 to put together.
Paul from Paul's Hardware also has a not so good budget build, but at $50 extra, some of his choices are actually better than Linus. I much prefer Kyle from BitWit, who put together a more realistic system at $550.
$1,000 is no small amount of dough, so if you're trying to go the super budget route, this video might be for you. We're gonna try to target roughly half that budget, and I'm gonna aim for $550 today.
It gives more room to maneuver. Ironically, Linus's Scrapyard Challenge series seemed to be a complete contradiction to these low-budget gaming builds advice. So if you have only $300, you should be following the advice from that series. Awesome series. The second problem is how these bigger channels always recommend an incomplete low-budget gaming PC build, especially for first-time builders or budget builders. What do I mean? Typically, they mention case, power supply, motherboard, CPU, RAM, GPU, and storage. The 7 usual suspects, but they completely ignore the rest of the stuff you need for PC gaming. You also need a monitor, and not just any monitor. Let's face it, you are getting into PC gaming, meaning amongst many other reasons, you want a better gaming experience than you can get on a console, and you may possibly want to tinker with settings and hardware down the line to squeeze out even more performance. One of the biggest bottlenecks, which is so often ignored, is the monitor. A cheap 22-inch 1080p monitor capped at 60Hz refresh rate without any screen tearing reduction technology like adaptive sync may look like you're gaming, until one day you play on a 27 or 28-inch 1440p 144Hz gaming monitor. The difference is night and day. I say 1440p 144Hz 27-28-inch because anything bigger like a 32-inch 4K 240Hz and above becomes a point of diminishing return, and one of the cheapest one you can find will cost you around $300 give or take, like this Acer Nitro VG270U PBM2PX. Okay, you don't have to get that monitor even if you stick with 1080p, absolutely fine, but get yourself a higher refresh rate monitor than a 60Hz one, at least 75Hz and above, and don't forget adaptive sync technology to reduce screen tearing. Your big TV may look like it's doing fine until you play on an actual gaming monitor. And then you also need either speakers and a microphone or a decent headset with a decent microphone, because online gaming, most people would want both. And lastly, I would argue if you are a first-time PC gamer or you're coming from console gaming, you will want a controller for some types of games. Of course, for first-person shooters, mouse and keyboard is the way to go. But for some other games like esports games, you just want to kick back with a controller, it's better. Okay, I hear your argument in that you may already have these peripherals and you don't want to play with a controller and you want to hook it up to your existing monitor or TV, etc. Which is fine if you do, except that there are people who don't. So include them in the budget allocation, even if it's as a separate cost. Mention this is for the PC case unit and the components inside only, and here is the budget for the rest. And suddenly that $300 or $500 budget is now $500 and $800 respectively at least. The only thing which is okay to leave out of the budget is a Windows license. You can still grab a free upgrade, a questionable cheap license from eBay or other online popular sites, or if you really want, buy a full price license. But we all know you can actually use a non-licensed Windows OS with a watermark, or remove the watermark if you choose so. And of course there is Linux, but gaming is still a Windows platform. And yes, sometimes these bigger channels do mention these, sometimes as a standalone video, but I really think they should include those in every new build as an option. What do you think? And the third bone to pick are the actual components choice, based on the fact that you would need to upgrade down the path.
And it's got an insane upgrade path.
Linus recommends the Athlon 3000G for a passable esports gaming title for its overclocking abilities and integrated Vega graphics.
We started with the impressive Athlon 3000G from AMD, which, while only a dual-core CPU, has integrated Radeon Vega graphics and seems to have become a darling for amateur overclockers and value seekers thanks to its unlocked core multiplier and tame power draw and thermals.
Who the heck is building a gaming PC for passable esports title only? Paul also mentions the 3000G.
The next component is the processor. For us, that's the 3000G right here. This was sent to me directly from AMD, but the Athlon 3000G will ship with a cooling solution, so I have a Wraith Stealth here. If your processor doesn't ship with a cooler, like some of the unlocked Intel processors, for example, or the 3950X on the AMD side, you will need to add one on, so bear that in mind. That might be an added expense.
And once again, it is Kyle who redeems himself by adding a note recommending a used Ryzen 5 1600 instead, which I completely agree with.
So there's the 2200G, or we could go with the 3200G, but I just don't know if we can justify the extra $10. It sounds silly for me to make a big deal about this $10 difference, but every dollar matters when you're talking about a budget as tight as the one we're working with today.
A processor with integrated graphics should never be the first choice for a first-time build.
This build is absolutely capable of entry-level gaming today without the graphics card, so you could do far worse than this for your starter Pokemon.
You want a dedicated CPU and dedicated graphics card separately. The 2x4GB RAM totaling 8GB,
because with 8 gigs of DDR4 3000 memory,
is also a bad choice for this system, and Paul's recommendation is much better.
For now, you should be able to find a reasonable 8 gig kit of DDR4 3000 or 3200 memory for about $35 to $40, or you can find a 2x8 gig kit for 16 gigs total for about $60. That's probably what I would recommend right now, because with your integrated graphics, it's going to be using part of your memory to run the graphics. So if you get an 8 gig setup with this processor, you're probably only going to be able to access about 6 gigs for your actual system. And given that it's only about $15 or $20 more to double the memory capacity and get yourself up to a 16 gig kit, that's what I'm recommending going with.
I don't understand why anyone would get brand new components now as a first-time builder that they have to soon remove and upgrade in the near future. First-time builders can barely post their system. I should know that's a huge problem which I get asked about all the time. And you think a first-time builder is already planning to build now so they can upgrade later with BIOS flashing and overclocking? No! no! Talking about overclocking, which is the whole point of getting this 3000G, you will need a decent motherboard and better aftermarket cooler, which will increase your budget. But as a first-time builder, you should not be tampering with overclocking. Adding more RAM, adding more storage, and swapping out the GPU are the only upgrades that a first-time builder can typically deal with. Otherwise, it's a lot of time and frustration and eventually money trying to troubleshoot their PC if they make any other changes. The power supply unit of 450 watt is also a terrible advice. Again, it's fine for this system, but not for a planned upgrade.
And our Corsair VS 450 watt is not only enough for today, but could even handle an upgraded graphics card if you wanted.
And once again, Paul gives much better advice.
Finally, we need a power supply, and I'm recommending an 80 plus bronze rated power supply. That's an efficiency rating, and then the wattage you should be going for is 550 to 650 watts. You do not need that much wattage for this system as I'm putting it together right here. And you might see budget builds that use a 400 watt power supply or something like that in order to get a system like this up and running. I don't recommend that if you're ever considering upgrading to a discrete graphics card. Look at any of the mid-range discrete graphics cards right now. They recommend probably a 500 to 600 watt power supply. So getting a power supply that can handle that discrete graphics card from the get-go means that you're only probably going to spend an extra $5 or $10 for the additional wattage, and you won't need to swap out a power supply in the future, which is kind of a big pain in the butt, and you'd prefer to avoid it if you can.
The SSHD as the main drive for both the operating system and storage is another terrible move.
And a 1 terabyte SSHD for storage, this build is absolutely capable of entry-level gaming today.
This is 2020, not 2015, so get yourself an SSD for your OS, a minimum 1 terabyte normal hard drive for your storage. Of course, if you can squeeze a few more bucks for a single 1 terabyte SSD, go with that. But from a troubleshoot point of view, for first-time builders, separate OS and storage drives are recommended. I owned one SSHD from Seagate based upon recommendation from bigger channels and have lived to regret it. The performance is really terrible, almost no difference with a normal hard disk drive.
Our Deepcool Matrix 30 case is unremarkable but solid enough.
And lastly, this is my personal recommendation: never build in a small micro ATX case if it's your first build, even if you're getting a micro ATX motherboard. Still, you should be building in a mid-tower case, a case that can handle a standard-sized ATX motherboard. It's not as easy as it looks to work in a small case as a first-time builder, and keeping to the upgrade path that they keep mentioning, you will not be able to upgrade to a more powerful ATX motherboard or easily add other components to your system in the future in a small micro ATX case. Okay, I hear your argument, you don't have the money, which is why you need to be looking at the part new and part used old generation build. That's what most of you want anyway, if the poll is anything to go by. That's 60% of you so far. When you're on a budget, every penny counts, and going with brand new components seriously limits the price to performance ratio, which is why I think those brand new budget gaming PC builds from these bigger channels are really dumb, and your first build will almost never be your ideal dream system. You should be looking at putting a parts list together which you can tinker with so you can learn from your mistakes and then get cracking on your next build, which should be much better. For some of you, it might take a few builds until you become proficient. Then only you can look into building with all brand new components a much more powerful PC, which of course will not be in the low-end budget side. I don't know if it's because of affiliation to companies or sponsored content, or the fact that bigger channels are now too big to even remotely empathize with low budget builds, but I propose that either they start including an actual full complete guide for low budget builds or simply skipped on low budget builds completely. We know they have bigger fish to fry, and who can blame them? The low end tech is not worth their time and money. Fine, just don't do a half-hearted job then. I thought to give you guys an actual components parts list, but since this can vary so much depending on your budget and your country, maybe we could do this together, one build at a time. I'm live on YouTube every Thursday at 5 p.m. UK, 12 p.m. Eastern time to further help you with your tech. If you are a first-time builder, I have up here a video that will help you build a better relationship with technology, and a complete first-time gaming PC build series down here to answer all of your tech questions. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.